The classroom echoed with cruel laughter as Daniel walked in. His shoes were torn, his uniform faded, and his bag patched with safety pins. To his classmates, these details were enough to make him a target. They whispered, they mocked, and some laughed out loud, certain that the poor boy didn't belong among them. Daniel never fought back. He carried their insults in silence, his eyes fixed on the ground, his hands gripping his books tighter. What nobody saw was the world behind his silence, the nights spent studying under a streetlight, the sacrifices his exhausted mother made, and the unshakable fire growing inside him. That day, when their teacher asked a question that left the whole class stunned into silence, Daniel's trembling hand rose. The same kids who mocked him smirked, expecting failure. But his answer didn't just surprise them, it silenced the entire room. Daniel was easy to overlook. His uniform was faded, washed so many times that the fabric had thinned. His shoes were cracked at the edges, stitched in places with thread, and squeaked when he walked. His school bag was patched with safety pins and duct tape. To most of his classmates, Daniel was not a boy, he was a joke. Each morning, as he entered the classroom, laughter followed him like a shadow. "Look at his shoes," one boy giggled. "Did he pull that bag out of the trash?" Another sneered. A girl whispered loudly enough for him to hear, "Poor kids shouldn't even be in this school." Daniel kept his head down, walking to the last bench. He didn't reply, didn't defend himself. But every cruel word etched itself into his heart. A life of silent struggle at home. Daniel's world was different but no less heavy. Their small apartment was dimly lit, walls peeling with paint, and a single bulb hung from the ceiling. His mother, Maria, worked 3 jobs: cleaning offices, washing dishes at a restaurant, and taking night shifts at a local store. Every night, Daniel studied by the flickering streetlight outside their window because they often couldn't afford electricity. His mother would return late, her hands raw from chemicals, her shoulders slumped with exhaustion, yet she always forced a smile for her son. "Daniel," she whispered, laying a hand on his cheek. "Don't let them break you. You are not your shoes. You are not your clothes. You are your mind. Remember that." Those words were his shield. The dreaded question one rainy Monday morning. Mrs. Parker, their strict but respected history teacher, entered class holding her leather notebook. She scanned the room, her sharp eyes demanding silence. "Today," she said firmly, "I will test not your memory, but your understanding. Listen carefully." The class straightened in their seats. Mrs. Parker's questions were never simple. "Who can explain what the Great Depression was?" she asked, pausing for effect. And, more importantly, how it affected ordinary families. The room froze. This wasn't a question you could answer with a line from the textbook. It required thought, empathy, depth. Hands that usually shot up instantly stayed glued to desks. Students exchanged nervous glances. The silence stretched awkwardly, and then, slowly, a hand rose at the back. Daniel's. A ripple of laughter spread across the classroom. "Daniel, really?" One boy snorted. "Let's hear what the poor kid thinks." Another sneered. Even Mrs. Parker hesitated for a moment, surprised, but then she nodded. "Go ahead, Daniel." Daniel's voice. Daniel stood up. His knees shook, but he remembered his mother's words. He took a breath and began. "The Great Depression wasn't just about numbers or banks collapsing," he said softly. "It was about families who had nothing left. Fathers walked miles for jobs that didn't exist. Mothers skipped meals so their children could eat. Children wore the same clothes until they fell apart." Some students snickered at the mention of clothes, glancing at his faded uniform, but Daniel pressed on. It was about survival. It forced people to share a single loaf of bread, to rely on neighbors, to discover strength they never knew they had. It wasn't just poverty, it was the test of the human spirit. The room grew still. His voice gained strength. "And I know this," Daniel added, his eyes glistening, "not just from books. I know it because I live it. My mother works 3 jobs so I can be here. We've gone hungry, but every night she tells me, we are not poor, we are rich with hope." That's what the Great Depression meant for families back then. And that's what it means for me today. The silence that followed the classroom, which had once roared with laughter at his expense, was now frozen. No whispers, no giggles, only silence. Mrs. Parker blinked rapidly, her eyes glistening. She set her notebook down, her voice trembling. "Daniel," she whispered, "that was the most profound answer I've ever heard in this classroom." Even the bullies shifted uncomfortably in their seats. For the first time, they didn't see a poor boy. They saw courage. They saw wisdom. They saw someone greater than themselves. The turning point that day changed Daniel's life at school. At lunch, instead of cruel jokes, he heard awkward silence. One of the boys who had mocked his shoes approached him, scratching the back of his head. "Hey you, you really surprised us today," he muttered. Daniel looked at him calmly and replied, "I didn't want to surprise anyone. I just wanted to be heard." From that moment on, the teasing slowed. Some students even started asking him for help with studies. He was no longer just the boy with broken shoes. He was the boy whose words left an entire class speechless. Years later, the story didn't end in that classroom. Years later, Daniel stood on a different stage. This time, it was his high school graduation ceremony. His shoes were new, his uniform crisp, but his humility remained the same. When his name was announced as valedictorian, the audience erupted in applause. Daniel walked up to the podium, his heart pounding, and looked out at the sea of faces. Among them, he recognized some of the same classmates who had once mocked him. Now, they were cheering. Daniel took a deep breath and began. "Years ago, in a classroom, I was laughed at for my shoes, but that day, I realized something important. People may judge you for what you wear or what you own, but none of that matters. What matters is the truth you carry, the strength you hold, and the courage to speak it." He paused, scanning the audience. "I stand here today not because I had everything, but because I had hope. Hope taught me to never give up, to turn mockery into motivation, and to rise above laughter." So to anyone who feels small, who feels mocked, remember this: you are more than their words. You are your own future. The crowd rose to its feet, clapping, cheering, some even wiping away tears, and in the front row, Maria sat with tears streaming down her face. She whispered the same words she had told him all his life. "You are not poor, Daniel. You are rich with hope."